quick, think of some sort of racist joke you've ever heard, or racist insult, or racist stereotype you've ever heard in your life. Now, instead of it being about black people, insert Irish people. And you have the exact same insults that came about during the Irish exodus from Ireland to the United States. Thank you for watching the Shakaama Live Show with your host, Shakaama. Now, that's true, everything that I just said. The Irish were just as quote-unquote hated as black people are. It seems that a lot of people don't know this. Now, could it be that the Irish are lazy, that the Irish are uneducated, that the Irish are degenerates? Or could it be that black people are uneducated, lazy, and degenerates? Is that possible? No, it's not possible. What could the truth be? The truth could be that people are scapegoated in the United States to describe or alleviate any sort of tension that are going on caused by the elites in the country pooping on those who are not of the elite class. And that means everybody. That means from millionaires on down, because there are people who are millionaires who are still not a part of the elite. But wait, the same can be said of Asians or Chinamen, as they were called at one point. The same can be said of Latinos or Mexicans. We were at war with quote-unquote Mexico or via Spain for many decades. So the hatred for everything Mexican and everything Spanish was very palpable. This is stuff that you don't hear in your history class, because white, quote-unquote white, although it's, how can you get much whiter than Irish? I mean, the people glow in the dark. The accepted white classes or white nationalities have hated on and scapegoated all sorts of people in the United States, including Native Americans, who come in two different colors. They come in the Asian-like color, and they come in the African color, because a lot of Native Americans were actually of African descent. Another historical fact that you're not taught in your public schools, funded by the federal and state and local government. So could it be that all of this stuff that you hear about black people today be completely made up? Because if you don't believe it's all made up, well, what's the truth about Irish people? Because the same exact stereotypes that they put on black people, they put exactly on Irish people, down to the very last stereotype. Oh, you don't believe this? Why don't we move all the way over to Great Britain itself? And now the stereotype is a person who lives in a certain neighborhood, or a certain village, a certain town, a certain area of town. Oh, no, I know you say in the United States, oh, you don't want to mess with the people on the other side of the tracks. But no, let's talk about in Great Britain. They have literally said these people are lazy, shiftless, blah, blah, blah. They run down their neighborhoods. They're all white people. Everybody's white in the story, but they say the same exact thing. Oh, they're loud, boisterous, uneducated. Every stereotype that you hear hoisted onto black people, although we know that there's black millionaires. And we know, and I've told you, and I'm from such a family, that there have been families who have been rich since America was quote unquote founded. Rich and free, completely independent. And it's a shame that you're not taught about the black people who actually helped found the nation. The more we move on into this country, the more racist it becomes and the more whitewashed even American history becomes. You don't know that there was a black president who was president before Washington. Now, I know a lot of you going, oh no, you're talking about the governor of such and no. Or you're talking about the senator of something. No, he was what is called a mulatto. Now, here's a fun fact. You know that whole one drop rule? They called people who had any semblance of black in them as black. Literally, they could look like, what's his name? Who's the super duper white guy on late night talk show? Conan O'Brien. They've called people who looked like Conan O'Brien, but they knew for a fact like their father was black or half black or something like that. And as far as presidents go, let's talk about presidents. We've had 7 different quote unquote black presidents. We have had 7 different quote unquote black presidents, and we've had black presidents who were as black as President Obama. So no, he wasn't the first black president. That is you showing your ignorance because you had a bad education. And what's funny is you won't admit that you had a bad education. In fact, the last black president was I want to say 60 years ago. Yeah, something 60, 70 years ago. Let's see here, 60, maybe 50 years ago. So, so if we have had black presidents before, we have black millionaires, we have black moguls, we have black billionaires. And in fact, we have more black billionaires today than we ever did before. But now the whole stereotyping of black people has gone just insane. And we now have people saying that Egypt was white. I mean, just stuff is just, and why, and what's the deal about the whole Egypt is white stuff? Because white supremacy says that black people can't have a civilization. The Egyptian civilization was the most civilized area on the face of the planet. Hands down, they even beat out the Chinese Empire, comparatively speaking. The wealth, the richness, and the stratification and expertise. We have engineers, architects, astronomers, all in Egypt. White supremacy said, that cannot be black. That can't be black. And they wrestled with that for years and years and years. And finally, a historian says, oh, we'll just deny that they were black completely. Up until 1950, Egypt was always, ancient Egypt was always considered a Negroid colony. And they can trace it all the way to the very beginning. The beginning of the Egyptian Empire started at the mouth of the Nile. I'll let you go ahead and Google that. It didn't start in Egypt. It started at the mouth of the Nile, and it progressed down the Nile to the very end of where you now have a nation, country called Egypt today. And even the word is an Western European aberration of the original word. And I'll let you Google that too. There's so many white people who just, no Negroids had a civilization. That can't be true. Well, the truth of the matter is, Western Europe and Europeans in general had no civilization. There was no great civilization ever. Oh, I know you're going to talk about Rome. Well, Rome is actually known for its governorship, not its actual civilization. They weren't super civilized. They were very sort of barbaric, and it's ironic that they call the white Europeans barbarians. Did you know that? And it's funny that now, today, the quote-unquote white Europeans, that's all these Scandinavian countries, Germany, France, and Great Britain, all consider themselves to be quote-unquote white, and they consider Southern Europeans not to be white. and they prejudge or are racist against the Southern Europeans. But we have, back in the Roman days, it was the white Europeans who were called the barbarians. But everybody wants to talk about, oh, Rome was so civilized. It was not civilized. There was slaughter in the street, disease everywhere. There was no morality whatsoever. And a part of being civilized is there is a high morality in the society. And high morality lends itself to a very stable economy. Egypt had a stable economy, had high morality, and you could trust that on Monday the market would be open, there would be no invasions, what have you. It's not until the Hittites came that we have any sort of influx of non-Africans into Africa. This whole idea that black people are this and that and the other, I wanted to tell you, the same has been applied not only just to Irish, but to Scottish as well. And the Scottish and Irish stock that came over here, who were used to being workers, they, of course, were put upon by the English, quote unquote British, who aren't actually British, who are actually Germanic, who then subjugated Scotland and Ireland. And I don't know why Scotland and Ireland. What is it? Is it Southern Ireland? I don't know which one is which. Southern or Northern Ireland, who is still subjugated by England, quote unquote. But they want to be. Oh, we have to keep the empire together. What? What is that? Why? You're raping Scotland for its oil, and Scotland doesn't even see anything from that. You govern Scotland from England, so that the Scottish don't even have any say-so in what's going on in their own nation. That's why I thought that whole referendum was ridiculous that it did not pass. It doesn't. Any logical person sitting down and looking at the facts of the case should have been easily said, oh, well, of course it's Scotland. Scotland should be free of any sort of control and leave the Union. But the same exact thing that's been applied to black people in the United States has also been applied to Irish people in the United States, and to a lesser degree Scottish people in the United States, simply because there wasn't as huge of an exodus from Ireland as there was from Scotland. And the same thing is applied from Southern Europeans to Northern Europeans, and vice versa. Northern Europeans hating on the Southern Europeans and not considering them white. I mean, it is just, when you get into this whole racism and white supremacy stuff, it is just a mess. And then saying, oh, Egypt was never black. I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's offensive. Why is it offensive? It's because we have people who literally don't even know their own history, namely Americans, don't even know their own history, don't even know that Obama wasn't the first black president, don't even know that simple fact, are trying to argue that Egypt was founded by white people. And I'm not talking about the Greeks. I'm talking about Irish people. This is a theory now that Egypt was founded by Irish people because Irish people were the only people who could have gone there and civilized that area to such a degree. These are the same Irish people that other white people have called the N-word. The same exact Irish people. So really you cherry pick when you want to praise somebody and when you want to downright castigate them. It makes zero sense. Trust me when I say white supremacy is so convoluted, and it comes from the top, and until you actually become educated in the real classics and actually studying actual history. And in fact, you can't even trust textbooks, because textbooks are not going to tell you the truth. They're going to tell you white supremacy. They're going to tell you feminism, third wave feminism. They're going to tell you the politically correct stuff, this PC culture. This is what your textbooks are going to teach you. They're going to teach you that such and so president wasn't great. Such and so president didn't usher in a a wave of prosperity in the United States? Yes, this is what textbooks are now done. They have completely corrupted any sort of reality in history as far as textbooks is concerned. They've even started corrupting the sciences. Why? Because it's not politically correct. No climatologist has said, not one who's not captured, has said that there is man-made global warming. No climatologist has said that. And in fact, thousands have signed a petition to stop the other scientists who are like social scientists and stuff, I mean, just ridiculous stuff, from saying that there is man-made global warming. They have opened up lawsuits, but now we have in textbooks that there is a such thing as man-made global warming. And the mantra is the science is settled. There is a consortium of scientists who agree that there is a such thing as man-made global warming. That's not how science works. And in fact, that's the first thing that you learn as a child is for science. For anything to be true, a whole bunch of scientists have to receive the same exact data, test the data, and get the same exact results. Everything that's involved in the climate change debate are all models. Models, not reality. This entire thing is being infected. And of course, it's at the bottom of the totem pole are in fact today black people. Irish are no longer looked down upon. Scottish are no longer looked down upon. Mexicans are no longer hated. Chinamen are no longer looked down upon. Native Americans are no longer looked down upon. But black people still looked down upon. Still looked down to. I got a guy who says, what about the IQ? There has never been a national IQ test. Never. Anytime you hear somebody say, oh, well, black people are 20 points below in IQ, there has never been a test. So anytime that you hear somebody quoting something about an IQ point or anything like that is all a lie. A big, giant, fat lie. And if you're an actual scholar, an actual intellectual, you will see that the whole idea of IQ was put forward by the eugenicists who were trying to find any excuse to degrade Africans, to murder Africans, and to eradicate Africans, which is really funny because if you are a student of history, you will see that African Americans, these are the direct descendants from Africa, directly from Africa, or a first generation African here in the United States, helped formulate the country. There has not been any aspect where an African was not involved with helping forming everything. Policy, programs, governorship, everything, inventions, everything, on down to being the best carpenter in a certain area. You don't know that the West was heavily conquered by Africans, African cowboys, African ranchers, African cattlemen. You don't know this because everything is just whitewashed. You don't know that a major portion of even escaped slaves were adopted into the Native American populations wholeheartedly, in full, completely adopted, boom, marriage, the whole 9 yards. Anything that you could understand about the word adopted, in full, so that the certain tribes' numbers swelled from being adopted, from adopting escaped slaves. So that you didn't just have the Asian Native Americans or the original African Native Americans. You also had the new escaped slaves who were African, of course, adopted into their tribes, and their numbers swelled. And now does that lead you to understand more why Native Americans populations were slaughtered? Everything is a big giant circle. Okay, why was there? It is always a question. Why did the white man slaughter the Native Americans? Because they didn't feel that the Native Americans were humans. Now, where else do you find that sort of thinking? Well, of course, you find that thinking when it comes to the indoctrination that the government put upon the general population about African slaves. That African slaves, by virtue of them being slaves, and this is taught in the church as well, this is why I don't understand how a black person could be a Christian, that the African slaves, by virtue of being slaves, were not human. If you're not human, you're also not beholden to God. God doesn't watch over you. All of God's promises, all of his covenants don't apply to you. This is why it's insane that black people worship Christianity. It's insanity. Oh, and I don't want to hear, but the original Jews were black. The original Jesus was black. That is not what you're worshiping. If you want an example, the common scholarly study of Islam is that Muhammad went to Shaitan, who is Satan. And it's not Allah. They renamed him Allah. That is the scholarly study of Islam. So, oh yeah, you can be worshiping Jesus, but Jesus is now a white man with long, straight, Northern European hair, with a beard, blue eyes, and quote-unquote God is some white guy with pure white hair, straight hair, Northern European white hair, long flowing Santa Claus beard. That's who Christians worship. And for Africans to give up their religion for a completely holy European religion, when the religion itself said that you were not human, makes zero sense. That no covenant under God applies to you because you are descendant from a slave of slave stock, and by virtue of being slave, it's evidence that you are not human. This is why the Native American population was slaughtered. They intermingled with escaped slaves. They even had, in the South, soldiers, black soldiers, who were slaughtered by their own commanders. How much less do you think they would think about slaughtering Native Americans and tribesmen who had accepted escaped slaves into their ranks? This thing is a big giant mess. It is a mess. And at the bottom, of course, are black people. But I'm telling you as a historical fact, the Irish were treated the same way. To a lesser degree, the Scottish were treated the same way. Even the Italians were treated terribly when the Italians came over. And of course, the Chinese building the railroad were treated the same way. This has been going on for centuries now. It is how things... now, what's my point? Well, my point is, if you treat white people this way, if you treat black people this way, is it a possibility that everything that you understand about black people is completely wrong? And is it a possibility that any evidence that you see that solidifies your bigoted viewpoint of black people could actually be caused by the very elite people who are trying to tell you that black people are wrong and horrible and all this sort of stuff? Now, I've already said and given you evidence that what they do is tax the black areas to death, more so than any other area, and then they take those tax dollars And they don't reinvest them into that area. They take them and invest them into the white areas. And then people say, but there's all sorts of Irish settlements and neighborhoods. There's also sorts of poor white trash neighborhoods who don't have the gang and sort of. Okay, well, let's take a look at that. What is the drug of choice in the white poor neighborhoods? Meth. Anybody can make meth, right? But not everybody can make cocaine. Not everybody who can make marijuana, right? Not everybody. You have to grow it and blah, 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 and the demand is way higher than, right? So, well, we have evidence directly coming from FBI files, CIA files, documentary after documentary after documentary, that crack cocaine, super strong marijuana is brought into the black areas by the government of the United States. We have the Iran-Contra thing, which on the other side of the selling arms to the Contras, we have the funding of buying the arms by putting crack into black neighborhoods and selling crack into black neighborhoods to fund the Iran-Contras. This is all documented. You can go look this up. Oh, I know that sounds like a conspiracy theory. We have people. Who is it? Willie Nelson said that he smoked pot with Clinton or somebody like that. We have other entertainers who said they've done drugs with politicians in D.C. We have them trying to set up Mayor Marion Barry of Washington, D.C. And how did they set him up? By trying to sell him drugs. Well, where did they get the drugs? And the drugs and the whole setup was done by the federal government. And where did they get the drugs? They got them themselves. They didn't get them on the streets. So when you see all of this stuff that, see, this neighborhood is run down. Okay, so we have the taxes taken out of the neighborhood. We have the denial of any sort of black owned, run business. This has been shown on 2020 that black people cannot get business loans, can't get business credit, but you can have like Koreans come into the black neighborhood who then take all of the money that they make out of the black neighborhood completely out. So all of these leeches on the black neighborhoods come into the black neighborhood. Everything that leeches and leeches and leeches and leeches comes to the black neighborhood. And speaking of leeches, you have Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Louis Farrakhan, Tavis Smiley, who's a guy who dresses up like a woman and puts zero back into the... There has to be a black community for the black community to be a community. And the very start of that is business. 2020, 60 Minutes have done pieces on this showing point blank institutionalized racism, meaning banks will not lend to black people and they can have excellent credit. They've shown it point blank. They've shown it point blank with just names, a black name. And we're not talking about the stupid, who's this, Raven Simone, idiotic Raven Simone talking about Guatemalandra. We're talking about stuff like Tyrone, Leon. It's common, easy name, anybody can pronounce, but that are perceived to be black names. When I call places, they think I'm Irish or Scottish, one of the two. So if I receive any racism, it's when I actually show up and show my face. And yes, it's happened. There is documented evidence that this is why the areas are the way they are. And of course, voting 100% Democrat all the time, decades after decades after decades, does not help at all, because that means you have zero political power. And for whatever reason, black people don't want to listen to me about how to exercise political power either. Don't vote Democrat. A lot of you will say voting doesn't matter. Okay, If that is 100% correct, then black people should have a holiday, one voting season, and completely vote from some obscure libertarian member. Every black person just get together and say, okay, this time we're going to vote for this libertarian candidate. And then I will guarantee you the Republicans and the Democrats will fall over themselves trying to offer black people something. You don't understand. The power comes by taking away stuff. For the parents who don't do the whole I'm gonna beat my child to death, the real power of being a parent means that I'm gonna take away your Xbox. I'm gonna take away your cell phone. I'm gonna take away your computer. That's power. How is it that you understand that, but you don't understand I'm going to take away my vote from the Democratic Party? I invite you to study the racism that was visited to Irish people, Scottish people, Chinese people, Mexican people in the United States over, if you're interested at all. And please don't say in the comment, I don't believe you. I don't believe any of this. I don't believe you. Go look it up first before you do anything. And don't say, oh, there has been studies. No, there hasn't. Fluoride has never been studied. No proper study. Never been studied to help your teeth. But everybody believes that fluoride helps your teeth. Fluoride is a toxin. It is anti-human. It will kill you. But people still, till this day, think fluoride actually helps your teeth. You're an idiot for believing so, especially when we have the internet around right now. Now, if it's possible for you to believe that fluoride helps your teeth today, although it's a toxin, how much more idiotic is it to believe that this whole racism thing is actually true against black people? I'm telling you, it was visited upon white people too in the United States. Your country is a terrible country. It literally has grown on the backs of people that they trod upon. And that is the way it has been done. Now, let me say this for the idiot communists out there who talk about, you're right, brother, it's the proletariat who have been downtrodden. No. Because your very next sentence is, that's capitalism. And it's not capitalism. Not even remotely. Capitalism is what happened to black people after they were freed, and there was none of all of the sophistication that has gone on now, that we have now, wasn't there, and black people went from freed slaves, uneducated, zero idea about business, to zooming to the most literate, mother and father, most married, the third wealthiest nation in the world, when there was no such thing as a KKK. Senators and congressmen voted into office, black senators and congressmen. That's capitalism. The elites have gotten so sophisticated now that you have a Bush 2, you have an Obama, who just completely railroads the country into oblivion. That's not capitalism. And of course, I'm sure there's some Zionism behind all of this. Thank you for watching the Shakaama Live Show. I've given you a lot to think about, a lot to talk about, so leave a comment. Make sure that you like the video so more than you can see. I have full-on racist, full-on KKK members, white supremacy organizations who are actually subscribed to me. Now, if they can subscribe, why aren't you subscribed? Literally, I do. Literally, not only are they subscribed, but they monitor everything that I come out with, and they have actually talked to me and argued with me literally before I've even clicked off of the upload button, meaning that I've clicked upload and then I removed that page and then gone to my regular account, and by the time I get to the regular account, they've already left comments and all sorts of stuff. White supremacists. argue with me. Now, how is it that they are all over me, but you, especially black people, I get these weird black people, or maybe they're not black people, I don't know. Oh, you're Uncle Tom, you're a Sambo. I can't believe you said not to vote Democrat. Kill yourself. And I'm not joking. I'm not being one of these meme guys. I'm being serious. Go take a flying leap, because you are what's wrong with black America today. I can't believe you're not voting Democrat. You are an idiot supreme. There is nothing even remotely intelligent in you. You are what I hate, and I don't hate anybody. I don't hate anybody, but you have a special place on my list of things I hate that has only like 2 spots on it, and you're one of them. You think you're awakened, you think you're sophisticated, but you're not. And even when some wisdom comes your way, you reject it. I curse you. Thank you for watching the Shakaama Live Show.